Hello everyone, I'm Nick from nextstepnick.com and I'm joined today by Viki, and we're going to try and make this into a weekly feature where we talk about games. Hello Viki.
Hello, guys.
So just to tell you a bit about Viki as well, she's worked in the industry before and done a little bit of freelancing here and there. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, no, I was with GGS Gamer for, God, I think nearly 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and I've been there for a little bit, and just
Yeah.
taking some time out doing something new.
Viki's a really huge writer of fiction. I love the stuff she writes as well. I'm a keen fan. So I thought what would be better than to get us both on once a week. We're both avid gamers as well. We'll talk about what's going on, how we feel about things, and basically have a bit of a ramble. And I'll put on a retro game in the background, which you'll be watching now. So, shall we get started? First things first, Viki.
Yeah.
I think we should start with the elephant in the room that everyone is sort of talking about this week. Cyberpunk.
Upset.
Yeah, I'm a little bit devastated. I mean, how do you feel about everything?
It's getting really frustrating, to be perfectly honest, because like I know delays happen, like that's inevitable, but it's when
Yeah.
it's just a cascade of them. It's like, we've already had Last of Us and Doom Eternal delayed, and now they're saying, oh yeah, Final Fantasy VII's delayed, which was bad enough, but that's only a month, and then Cyberpunk till September, and it's like my
Yeah.
game library's looking pretty thin.
One of the things I thought was like an unintentional victim in this whole thing was the Avengers game. Like everyone looked at it and went, eh. And now they're like, yeah, we're going to delay it. And it's like, you're just making it worse for yourself. I don't think anyone is like, but when's it out? When can I be low budget Iron Man?
Yeah, no, I've got a friend. Every time he comes around here, we end up watching some of the Avengers trailers purely so he can just be like, "This looks awful." So yeah, I am well familiar with the Avengers game.
Yeah, I've heard it's okay. I've heard good things about like what it looks like and what it plays like. Apparently, weirdly enough, the stuff that the public's been shown is nowhere near as good as what the press have seen. But at the same time, it's like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like you cannot establish like the entire franchise for this long and then be like, oh, and by the way, here's Robert Downey Jr.'s stunt double. Here is Captain Australia, and here is the Incredible Bulk. And you're like, no, hang on, who are these people? Like, this isn't.
Isn't Thor in the really bad wig as well? These hair is just not textured nicely.
Yeah, I think it's early days, so it might be one of those things that really improves. But I think the thing is if you were going to make a game like this, you kind of had to go one way or the other. Like, you either fully indulge with the films and go, okay, we're going to make them look as much like the actors as they can. And I know that obviously the royalties they'd be paying Robert Downey Jr. alone would be like, there'd be no point in doing that.
I don't think it's the royalties though, because this same friend was saying to me that apparently they're trying to open it up so a new cast can be playing the same characters, but it'll be new actors for the Avengers.
See, that would be interesting. I mean, I think they could have either gone with copying the actors now perfectly or go the other way and make them completely different. Like, don't ape who is currently on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, make it a bit different so they've got their own character. And I think the problem is it's the worst time to have it come out because everyone is so familiar with the actors that they know as those roles that it's just a case of being like, hang on a minute, who are these people? Like, I'm interested to see how they do it.
Constantly comparing them to the A-list actors.
This is the problem that I've got, is that I will just be looking at them every time and being like, oh, I'm not Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And I know that's awful because I am a fan of the comics as well, but he's done such a good job as Stark, for example, that I'm just like, that's who I associate with. And
Yeah.
I'm fine with it being someone completely different. I mean, I think they've done a good job with some of the cartoons in capturing that attitude. But I don't think you should just ape the films. But
Yeah.
as far as Cyberpunk goes, I am pretty sad about that. There's more to that story as well. I don't know if you read it during the week, but apparently, even though there are delays, CD Projekt Red have come out and said there will still be crunch.
It's like, so how bad is the stuff that still needs doing if it still requires crunch? Like, I can understand if they're like, oh yeah, we're going to delay it a month, we're going to, try and patch some more bugs, we're going to try and polish it. But then they're saying that they're still going to have crunch. So, like, when they announced the release date, how confident were they that they were going to hit it?
Yeah, I think the issue I've got with the whole thing as well is that crunch is one of those things where people will justify it and say, oh, well, yeah, but, they're towards the end or anything like that. But it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's not a case of just, oh, we need to work a little bit harder here. It's a case of extreme pressure on people to be working for free or working ridiculous hours. And you can't sustain that. And I mean, one of the things they said in the article, one of the things that was said by, I think it's the CEO, was Pilking, actually said, "Oh yeah, but some of the guys that come to us say, oh, this is nothing compared to Rockstar."
It's not a good thing.
That's not, yeah, exactly. That does not excuse you. That's like saying, "Oh yeah, well, this is awful, but at least we haven't shot you." I suppose that is a benefit, thanks, but that kind of eliminates the point. So I don't think crunch is ever productive, to be honest.
I think it's just setting a bad precedent because, there's already like a bit of a reputation for working in the games industry where it's saying that, you're going to be putting in crazy hours. And it's just like, in any other workplace, people would come out and say, like this is cruel, this is inhumane, like you can't do this kind of thing, or they need to be paid like drastic overtime.
Yeah.
But this seems to be the one industry where, even though like the members of the public said, this is awful, like nothing seems to change. I mean, there were horrible stories coming out of Telltale right before they went under about the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Telltale as well is, I don't know if you saw, but they've actually been revived to obviously make the new Wolf Among Us, which I don't understand really, because it's no one from the original team, so it's not going to be the same.
No.
But one of the things the CEO said, he was quizzed about crunch, and he kind of said, well, yeah, but wait and see the finished product.
No.
And that does not fill me with confidence that they have learned anything. Like, it's just a case of, like, all you need to say... The funny thing is I don't think people realise, but if you look at, like, id Software, for example, they tend to have pretty good stories coming out. As soon as they delayed Doom, and even with Cyberpunk, everyone said, take as long as you need. Nobody wants developers to crunch. Like, we're happy to wait for a finished product that is good. You do not have to crunch. If you say, actually, we're going to take more than a month, rather than coming out in September, we're going to come out at the end in Christmas time, that's fine. If that means that people can see their families and they're earning reasonable wages and not being treated like dirt.
This is more my issue because, like, you know what, I'm disappointed, but I'm not going to lose any sleep of it. It's the nature of it. But it just seems like, I don't know whether it's that they're announcing games too early, but it's just becoming a trend for so many major releases to keep getting pushed back. And it's just more like, I can maybe understand like one or two, but how are so many titles just being constantly delayed? Like, are they not factoring this in? Is it too much public demand? Is it?
I have to agree, because the thing is that I'm so used to now, as an industry standard, and I think everyone will kind of agree, the day one patch is a thing now.
Yeah.
Like, everyone is like, oh, well, we're going to have the day one patch. So now we've got the day one patch and the delay. And I think the thing is if you're not sure when it's going to release, that's fine. Just drip feed us trailers, show us behind the scenes, for example. I mean, one of the things I really liked was, if you remember Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, on the lead up to that, one of the things they did that I thought was great was they were releasing information bit by bit, drip feeding it, and one of the things they did was they showed it behind the scenes where they said, okay, this is how we're capturing the audio for this. And just showing those little bits of information here and there was really interesting. Like, that kept me going. I didn't need them to say, and it's out tomorrow. I just need it to be, consistent and let me see what you're doing. If I can see you're working and it looks cool, I'm not going to rush you. You bring me a product, I'm going to play it. That's it.
Well, I think this is hopefully what Ubisoft are doing with Beyond Good and Evil too, because they're popping up here and there with trailers, and like they've got a scheme that you can sign up to. It's basically like their newsletter. It's called the Space Monkey Program, but you get to take part in surveys. You've got like forums, you can submit ideas to the devs and stuff like that. And I think the general because they've not even given like a release window or release year, it's just it will be ready and it's when it's ready. And I'm pretty sure that was the deal with Cyberpunk as well, so I'm not quite sure what's happening.
See, I don't know, because I'm wary about Beyond Good and Evil, because I'm going to be honest, and I know a few people will be like, what? But I've never played Beyond Good and Evil.
Oh, you're missing out.
I've got it at the moment, actually. They were giving it away for a little while, and I thought, yeah, I'll play that. And I've downloaded it, and I'm actually going to start it soon because I want to play through it.
Brilliant.
But I've heard that the sequel is going to be like a prequel in an open world.
That's right.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, I'm guessing you're the same, that was like the last thing you wanted, so I'm not sure where they're going with this.
I mean, to be honest, I'm just happy the franchise ain't dead. Gonna be really honest here. When I was at GGS, we covered E3 every year, and it was the running joke.
Yeah.
That we'd just be like, try a circle for Beyond Good and Evil 2, guys, because we knew it was never going to happen. It was like Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah, it's a bit like saying, okay, guys, Half-Life 3. It's like, no, they don't count that high.
Exactly. And I know it's still going to be linked to the first story in some way, but yeah, it's a prequel. But you know what? We're getting more content. We might get a sequel at some line down the road, so I'm not too fussed about that.
Yeah.
But more what I am worried about is it seems to be a build your own character job.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And very rarely do I ever see games that do that and do that well. I mean, obviously, like with Fallout and stuff like that, it's a blank slate and blah, blah, blah. But like, like Technomancer, I've played that, which I hadn't.
Yeah.
It's just like, I want a solid character with a solid story. I don't want just, yeah, let's have generic protagonist Chan, you know.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think one of the ones that did a really good mixture for this was Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Because you had the freedom to customize your own character, but you were within the constraints of Shepard.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the Mass Effects that exist, because nobody talks about Andromeda for good reason.
No one talks about Andromeda.
No. I've actually got Andromeda on my shelf. And to be fair, I really like BioWare as a rule. This is pre-Anthem we're talking here.
Oh, yeah.
But I really like BioWare as a rule, so I'm really a fan of their stuff. I got Andromeda bought for me after I was waiting in regard to Andromeda because I knew it was going to be a mixed bag. I'm not still completely sold on Dragon Age Inquisition, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm still a bit on the fence about that. I'm surprised that did as well as it did. But I think one of the things with Andromeda was I started it up and it was... There is a patch now. There's a few things that have been changed, but it is still a bit like Uncanny Valley, and it's very hard to lose yourself when your foot gets stuck in the floor. Don't get me wrong. I know Star Trek had a lot of enemies, but the last thing I know, I don't think anyone got absorbed into a wall. I might be wrong, but to be fair, but it's something else. It's something else, and that's the thing. I think you're right. There needs to be constraints behind character building. There has to be a certain degree of how does this person fit into the world? Because
not just blank slate.
Yeah, I mean, it can work, but not in a story-rich game, usually. It's difficult to feed in, unless you have a grounding at very least. Like with Cyberpunk, you've got the whole idea of V, so no matter what happens, you're kind of going to be the same person, but you're editing that person's looks, but you're still going to be that person within the story.
Yeah, and it's the gender as well, can't you?
Yeah, you can do quite a lot of different stuff. They've really gone to town in regard to the customization. I've heard really good things. But we sort of both cycled back to Cyberpunk, and it's so far away.
I was going to say that I think you feel the way about Mass Effect Andromeda as the way I feel about Kingdom Hearts 3.
I know this has been one of your big points, hasn't it, Kingdom Hearts 3? I'm not going to lie, it's not a series I ever got into, just because I really like Final Fantasy, but I found it very hard, from my perspective when I first saw Kingdom Hearts. And to be fair, from a lot of people, I've apparently missed out. But it's just it didn't catch me. But I saw Final Fantasy characters, and then Donald Duck just popped up, and I was like, never mind. So that kind of... But I like what I've seen. I saw the animations for Kingdom Hearts 3, and I've heard really good things about the graphics and the animations. But then I know you're a diehard fan of the series, and apparently the story is, problematic.
I have not been more disappointed in a game's story since Infamous Second Son. The point is that it looks great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing that's really, really infamous about this kind of thing. Cycling back to that game. But I think the problem is that they know full well, let's be honest, companies know full well that they can cut out huge chunks of gameplay now, sell it back to people, and yet there will still be people that defend it.
You cannot voice an even vaguely negative opinion about that game.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm part of the Reddit for a few different bits, because I watch subreddits for different things to write about. And I'm part of the subreddit for Stadia, for example. And my God, it's like the kind of things that people argue about. And there's just...
Yeah.
It's the same thing I wrote an article about Ubisoft recently, just talking about them changing direction, because this is something we're going to talk about too. But Ubisoft have said they're going to change direction from the kind of games they're making now, which is stereotypical cookie-cutter open world. And don't get me wrong, there are some great gems in there, but there is a lot of fluff. But they're going to move from that into a lot more in the way of different diverse games. And they've brought back one of the creative directors now in charge of the editing team, who is going to actually be in charge of leading what is coming in and where. They're going to be choosing different games. So there's a chance of stuff like Splinter Cell. There's a chance that games from the past are going to start coming back, which could be really interesting. I said this, I raised it, someone immediately started private messaging me, jumping down my throat that Ubisoft is the best developer. I shouldn't criticise them, and that anything that they put out, just because they've had one bad game, doesn't mean all the games are the same. Bear in mind that it was a news piece. So there was no editorialising there. I literally just reported what I saw. And then I had that person saying, how do you justify Far Cry being similar to Assassin's Creed? How dare you just... And you think, why are you defending this company? They're a multi-billion-dollar company. they're doing okay for themselves. If there is something to critique, you should critique it, because it's not a case. They will be looking at your responses as market research, and if they see that they can do something dodgy as a business practice, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, that's great, I love it," they will say, "Right, we got away with that, lads. Carry it on." That's how it works. That's how it works.
This is my big problem with Square Enix at the moment, because
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I was the one who I took days off work
Yeah.
for Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, I showed up at game at 9 a.m. to pick my copy up. About 2 days after we moved into the flat, we barely had furniture. This was a big deal. And we had no sofas for like 2 weeks, but we had a TV and we had a PlayStation, so that was the important thing. But
well, you could sit on the TV and then lean backwards, I suppose.
Just about.
Ah.
But the thing is, though, it was like, I think after the debacle that was Final Fantasy 15, which did the exact same thing, where it gave us a very lackluster game, cut out half the plot, and sold it back to us as DLC.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling really done. If Ubisoft is going to up their game, and I loved Far Cry 5, not going to lie, I could not remember the last time I had more fun with a game.
Yeah.
But it was just, like, we need to do better.
I think that's the thing. Like, to be honest, I'm the other way. I loved Far Cry 3. I thought that Vaas was one of the best characters in gameplay just because of the believability and how unique he was. And you literally saw the moment where Ubisoft said, "Oh, so you like protagonists that are also quite charismatic, do you? Antagonists that are charismatic? Here's another load as well, Pagan Min."
Yeah.
"Oh, you like Pagan Min? Here's another one, you know. Here's Jacob. Oh, you like him too? Okay, here's in the future. There's 2 twins." You're like, hang on a minute.
Actually, I didn't like Far Cry New Dawn. I literally could not stick it. I don't know why.
I didn't like 5.
Joseph Seed was the best bit.
See, I didn't like 5 very much just because I played it and I started it up not too long ago because I skipped 5, I'm not going to lie. I had a bit of, to be honest, I had Far Cry fatigue, and this is exactly the problem with the studio. I had played 3, I had played 4, I had tried Primal, and I was like, I am Far Cried out now. I know what this is going to be. I will be a protagonist who is dropped into a world that is not quite my own. I'm a little bit out of my depth. And what am I going to do? I'm going to unite the areas, break through like enemy camps, scout out places using either radio towers or some kind of scouting device. And then eventually what I'll do is I'll take down a charismatic hero, and it all turns out that actually maybe they were a little bit right, like Pagan Min. And then lo and behold,
realise how similar they all were until you said it. Oh my god.
Yeah, when you think about the fact as well that like you take it from that, so you say, okay, it's literally at the moment like they have a folder on their computers and they go, okay, we're going to make a Far Cry. Can you just copy and paste but change the names? Yep. And you just think, hang on a minute. And like New Dawn was the ultimate insult because they went, right, can you add a pink filter? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's done. Good, move on. You're like, hang on, this isn't a full title game. This is DLC. At the best, this is DLC. And it's just, I think that's the problem is...
£30 though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem is that I think they charged so much and they pushed it. Same thing with, I don't know if you played Wildlands or Breakpoint.
Oh, I didn't. The only kind of middle game, because basically my first proper Far Cry game was 5.
Yeah.
And then actually tell a lie, I played Primal before that, and I loved Primal because I killed, I think it was a big cat or a bear, something like that. I killed that with my bare hands, and then I fell over a cliff and died.
Oh.
10 out of 10. Brilliant game.
I played, well, like, I'm a fan of the Rainbow Six series. I do like it. I used to play Vegas 1 and 2, and I think they're great. I'm really into my shooters. And I thought, oh, okay. I wanted to play something that's tactical in an open world, so I went to Wildlands, Ghost Recon Wildlands, and I thought, oh, this is okay. I played it. It was quite samey. You do one area, then you do another area, then you do another area. It was kind of, yeah, it's okay, but I know they've expanded on that. I know there's like a big community of people who really enjoy it, so fair enough. But when I saw Breakpoint, I thought, hang on a minute. This is Wildlands with drones.
Oh.
And lo and behold, when I played it, it's Wildlands with drones and really bad AI. And it's a flop. Let's be honest, it has done really badly. It's caused the entire studio to rethink where they're going in future. And yet still, people try and defend it. And I get where they're coming from. If you enjoy a game, that's fine. But nobody is saying, when they critique a game, that you are silly for buying it. That is not the point at all. Like, nobody is going to say, okay, you're an idiot because you bought this game. That is not the case at all. If you enjoy it, that's fantastic. But at the same time, if you think a game could be better, you should feed that information back, because developers want to see. Fair enough, publishers don't want to see it, but developers do want to see how their work is received, because then they can grow in regard to what they can do. I mean, I know they're constrained, but they do. If they say to, for example, their boss, well, I don't think this is a great idea, their boss forces them to put that feature out, that feature bombs. Well, they're not the ones that are going to get it in the neck. It's a case of just, you need to be able to vocalise how you feel about stuff. And I think that's the problem, is the community is quite vicious when it comes to, if people don't like the things I like, I will get very angry.
The thing is though, like, nothing is immune to criticism. Like, I mean, I will freely call Final Fantasy 15 a dumpster fire, because, I mean, do we care about spoilers? It's been, what, 4 years? God, 4 years.
Well, what we'll say is, if you don't want spoilers for this, I would skip probably to the... What I'll do is, actually, I'll put a timestamp. So if you don't want spoilers, skip to the timestamp on the screen now. And, okay.
Basically, I was rolling with 15 until I got to the end of Chapter 9, where they unceremoniously kill off Luna with less than 30 minutes of screen time, where they're trying to sell me on this big tragic romance.
Yeah.
And they kill her off.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what, game? This is the point. Apart from Chapter 10, which I will maintain is the best chapter in that entire game, because everybody is emoting and arguing, and it's just great.
Yeah.
But that is where 15, I would personally call a dumpster fire. There's lovely bits of 15, but but it is not immune to critique. I wouldn't say there's lovely bits of Kingdom Hearts 3, because there really wasn't. I mean, there were a few scenes at the night, the Leonizer scenes on the clock tower, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But nothing is, like, even if I'm calling it a dumpster fire, I'm just like, but people are allowed to have negative opinions, and people are allowed to have, like, balanced opinions. Like, I can find nice things to say about it, but at the same time, it's not immune to critique.
No, and like, for example, I think this is a good thing, because if anything, the thing that people should bear in mind is that you are a huge fan of the Kingdom Hearts series.
Yeah.
So if you dislike something, this is important, because if there's something wrong, you are their target audience. This isn't a case of you going into a game that you don't play and saying, oh, I don't like this. This is a case of you going into a game that you love and saying, hang on a minute, I'm not that keen. And it's not because you haven't seen more of something that you want. I mean, I know one of the critiques that people get quite a lot when they actually express criticism is, oh, you just want more of the same. But that's not the case at all. Like, I think that's the thing, is correct criticism, for example, if you're saying constructive criticism, like, oh, actually, I really like this. I'd like to see more of this, though. I'd like to see you indulge this more. That should be heard. I mean, one of the really good examples was that, for me, I love the Bioshock series. I'm a huge fan of the Bioshock series. I think Ken Levine is amazing. I love his work. And I love Bioshock 1, and I love Bioshock Infinite. I think 2...
Oh, okay. Because I've immediately heard that follow up with by so many people. Oh, but I hated Infinite. So, okay.
Yeah, and the reason being is that Infinite did something different, because Bioshock was originally one of these games that was billed as, okay, it's like a story-driven game where you can grow your own character set and you can work your way through, and there's this really interesting story that generally peels away just different layers. And one of the things I loved about that game is the fact that you see the social interactions between people after this disaster. There's this really rare, this is such a silly thing, but there's this really rare event that you can see, just a random sporadic scripted event, where if you go to a place called Arcadia, there are these people that can basically teleport around and they throw fire at you. And one of the things they do is, if you go there at a certain point, they actually sort of interact with each other. There's like this whole little dance medley. And back then, that was so hard to animate, and barely anyone will see it unless you look for it. But it just shows the level of detail. And when you're listening to these audio logs and you hear this dilapidated city and how people have slowly broken apart, I thought that was great. And then when I got to Infinite, I know people critiqued it for not being a horror, but what I loved about Infinite was you were that catalyst. Like, the world fell apart around you, and you're the reason it's happening this time. You are that force that in the first game had happened before you. And I think it was great. It handled things differently. It dealt with relationships and different things like that. It expressed a view towards stigmas and opinions of like different times, and it really showed what people thought and how things could change. And I thought that was great. I loved it. 2, meanwhile, I thought was a steaming pile of crap that basically took the formula of the first game, went nowhere with it, was clearly an external studio, wallowed in the first game, tried to basically sell things off the back of, look, we've got big daddies, and that was it. There was nothing interesting. The story was crowbarred in. They crowbarred in a new character that had no place in the story, that actively undid parts of the lore of the first game. Now, don't get me wrong, what I was saying here, and this is why I would use this as an example, I'm not saying, oh, this isn't fair, I want more Big Daddies, I want more horror, you shouldn't do your independent things. I'm saying, when you indulge your own independent ideas, when you bring something new to the table like Infinite, you can create something fantastic that's different, and don't worry, there are going to be people that might not like it, but at the same time, you will still do well because of the fact that you have passion, so the product will be better. Whereas, if you just wallow in the past, it's not going to get any better, let's be honest. Like, you need to use the past game as a springboard for a new title. You have to bring enough new stuff that you'll bring people around, rather than just wallowing in the past. And that's my critique, and I would say that that's the same critique that a lot of people have about different games. We're not saying that we want more of what we've had before. We want to see you really push that. We want to see you indulge that passion and grow a world that your audience has got passionate about as well.
David Cage, right? I'm just going to say, I am not maintaining that they are the pinnacle of gaming literature and art, but you know what? They're fun.
Yes.
And as much as I don't think Detroit was as good as it could have been, Beyond Two Souls was great.
Yeah, I can see that.
But if you're taking this as a trashy paranormal game about a girl and a ghost, you know what? Just roll with it. And like, no matter what you want to say about David Cage, because yeah, okay, his plots aren't the best.
Yeah.
But at least they're trying to do something different. Like, I did have a few critiques about Detroit, but for what Detroit was, it was fun, it was new, it was different. And this is why I was looking forward to Cyberpunk so much, because it's like, you know what? Let's just go hard with the sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I'm not a huge David Cage fan myself, but I think part of the reason for that is because he does what we said before, which is he writes some interesting stories. Don't get me wrong, towards the end, they go absolutely mad, and I'm not always keen on the way he basically brings stuff back in. I still think one of my favourite moments from a David Cage game, and again, spoilers guys, let's be honest, it's been a while, but if David Cage games, when it's the case of like Fahrenheit, and it goes from, oh, this is interesting, how did this happen? Well, don't worry, it's a magical cult, and they're inside your head. You're like, hang on a minute, this has gone from 0 to 100 so fast. I love it. And the same thing with when it comes to Detroit Become Human. I mean, again, spoilers guys for this whole section. I know you've probably already clicked past this because I will put a stamp on the screen, but you've finished Detroit Become Human, haven't you?
See, I played it through once. I got one ending and I was like, I am quite disappointed in this and I don't want to go through it again, but I will say that junkyard scene with Marcus was top tier.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would say, one of the biggest critiques I'd say of that game is that the ending, one of the endings, and it's not like a massive spoiler because basically if you've played through the game once, you've basically seen this, but it's revealed towards the end that a child that has been in a domestic abuse relationship with its father turns out to be a robot.
Yeah.
And that removes the entire idea of a bond between a robot and a human because it completely undoes everything else. And this is the problem, is that David Cage, I think, he writes some interesting stuff, but his gameplay doesn't evolve. There is a lot of, okay, press square, square, circle, X, square, up, down, left, down, right. And you're like, okay, I don't know why I'm doing Dance Dance Revolution here. Like, if it evolves with the storytelling, you could do some interesting stuff. Whereas I think part of the reason why he ends up in a rut is because his storylines change, but his gameplay can't mirror what he's doing in the story. The
thing is like Detroit, funnily enough. So basically, the whole point of David Cage games is it's essentially like point and click or look and examine the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Detroit actually has a lot less than Beyond Two Souls did.
Yeah.
It was very stripped down in comparison. But I think also the main problem with Detroit was that you didn't really need Kara's storyline at all. Like, you've literally got Android Revolutionary, you've got the cutest detective in the world, and then you've got Kara, who is basically dragging Alice around.
Yeah.
And I still maintain the best thing they could have done was cut her completely, or cut Marcus and combine their roles into one.
Yeah.
And I think that would have made it a whole lot less convoluted.
See, personally, what I would have liked to have seen is I would have liked to have seen them indulge that even further and maybe done a little bit of a chapter with her and then done a little bit of a chapter of another android in a relationship with a human. Because I think that's the thing, is when you show these relationships and how these androids are associating with humans, that's when you get these really real moments, these raw moments. I think the moment where you actually realise that there's this domestic abuse situation going on is very, very raw and very, very primal. And it's very dark and it pushes things, but at the same time you have unique feelings. And the problem is when David Cage has a lot of time to explore something, he tends to go miles off the bat. If he just had that storyline to convey to us, okay, this is a domestic abuse situation. These are the kind of things going on. How would you deal with it? And then it moves to another person and says, okay, this time you are an android in the home of someone who has disabilities, and what we're going to talk about here is how you engage with them and how you help to assist their life and how you formed a bond and how you do that. And that would be nice because you can see, well, hang on a minute, it's not just shades of grey, there's all these different spectrums, and how exactly do we define what is good and bad and what is real and what is human and what is machine? And that would have been interesting, but instead he had too long. And instead of just saying, okay, this is the situation, we need to talk about this, it was, okay, this is the situation, by the way, she's also a robot, go mad. And you're like, no, went too far. Same thing with, I played a lot of Heavy Rain. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I like Heavy Rain to an extent, but I find that, again, he just goes, I mean, I'm never going to forget, Jason.
I don't think anybody is.
No, but it's a case of, why is this gameplay in here? You've said that the kid has gone missing. That's fine. We'll go and, but the problem is don't let someone walk 3 feet, cutscene, 2 feet, cutscene. Have their stuff there. Natural evolution in gameplay that allows you to find out that characters are involved. For example, don't have someone say, oh yes, she is my wife. Therefore, here is a sex scene. Well, no, yeah, I understand you have sex with her. She's your wife. You don't need to show me a long, elaborate sex scene with the wife. Fair enough. If you want to put it in there for artistic reasons, that's fine. But at the same time, if you want to show that the wife and the husband are close, for example, then just have it through their interactions. Have there be a case of when she says goodbye, she touches him. Just little tiny bits where you say, oh, okay, they're a close family. You don't meet people in the street and they go, hello, this is my wife. We will kiss in front of you now. Go. That doesn't happen. It's just a case of... Yeah, well, sometimes it happens, but I don't stay in contact with those kind of people. But I think that's the thing. It's just, yeah, exactly. The exposition should be woven into the narrative. It shouldn't be a case of saying, okay, here we are, and this is my son, and this is my other son, and here we are in the shopping mall, and oh my god, where has he gone, and here is a car, oh no, he is dead, and now I'm sad. So, well, we understood that. You didn't need to be cookie cutting a lot of stuff to us. But yeah, I think that's the thing, is going back to the original topic, I think the idea of Ubisoft growing their brand is a good thing. And I think critiques should be allowed as long as they are genuine and constructive and they're not just a case of, I want more of this, please. Then I think they're totally justified.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, now going on to another topic, I don't know how much you've seen about this yet. I know Jim Sterling was talking about it earlier, but have you seen play?
Not a whole lot, but to be honest, I think it's a pretty good idea, because how many days do we go with the Daily Mail putting out a story that my little Timmy spent $5,000 on microtransactions on Candy Crush?
Yeah, see, I think the thing is I think it's a good idea in theory. What this story basically is the UK has come up with a new group to basically combat people spending too much on microtransactions by encouraging parents to learn more about how exactly their children interact with games, what games are, and how they can avoid microtransactions. And I think Jim Sterling raises a good point here. Yeah, just don't put them in games. Targeting children would be a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit like saying, okay, I've brought out a video to show you how to not cut your mouth on the razor blades I've put in your bubblegum. Well, a good idea would be to not put razor blades in the bubblegum, to be quite frank. But, I think it's a good idea, but I think it's a good idea for a problem that they have engineered themselves. So it's like saying, okay, we've made it so that people are going to be more aware that we're going to be speeding now. I don't know how I feel about it, really. I think the problem is that it's normalising, again, just normalising microtransactions and mechanics in game that encourage children to spend as something we should all just get used to.
Yeah, I mean, I can applaud them for at least doing something about something they can't control. Like, yeah, microtransactions, I wouldn't say they're entirely predatory, because, I mean, God knows how much I've spent on the Sim Store over the years. But you can't deny that they are somewhat inclined to get people...
Yeah.
They're designed to get people hooked, basically. And yes,
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is with microtransactions, especially, is that if they're in place in such a way that they're not predatory and aggressive, and they just literally encourage people to add to their current experience, that's great. I mean, a really good example would be CD Projekt Red with The Witcher. Both DLCs are huge.
yeah,
Same thing with stuff like I've seen before with like the Skyrim games. Well, I say Skyrim games, the Elder Scrolls. Pardon me, the Elder Scrolls games, especially when it comes to Oblivion. The DLC, apart from horse armor, which, to be honest, is kind of to blame for everything, the horse armor DLC.
yeah.
But when it comes to stuff like the Shivering Isles, you got quite a lot of content there for a reasonable price. And I'm more than happy to pay for stuff like that. What I don't like is when we're cutting things out of games and then selling it back to the consumer. I really don't like this practice now as well of a game shipping and them saying as the game ships, so we've got more, it's already done, but we'll just wait. No, if you've created it, that means you've spent time that you should have been using on the base game to create DLC that will be sold back to the consumer later. You should have spent more time on the game. And this is why we have things like crunch, because there is this pressure to build DLC as soon as the game goes out.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, it's just even stuff like, I'm very much in the opinion DLC should supplement, it shouldn't be filling in gaps, and this is why I'm so pissed about Remind. Because it's like,
Yeah.
I am all for extra story content. You want to give me, like, I don't know, 10 tons of character backstory, absolutely fine, because that wasn't the point of Kingdom Hearts 3. But you can't realistically, I think, and to be fair, I'm not caught up on the newer bits because I only kind of tuned into this for when it was first announced. But it's essentially redoing the final battle with, at the very least, playable Roxas and playable Kairi, which were things people had asked for from the start, and resolving the what happens to Kairi after she got stabbed bit, which, again, should have been in the main game, or at the very least, should have been put into you should have set it up in a way that she doesn't just disappear and then come back and there's this big chunk of time missing. And then you're just like, oh, something clearly happened here. You either cut it off and leave it as a cliffhanger for a proper DLC, or you explain it in the game proper because it's crucial.
Yeah, this is one of the problems I had with Final Fantasy 15, actually, was with Final Fantasy 15, with Prompto and Gladiolus and everyone there, and Ignis. It was a case of stuff happened to them, they disappeared, then popped up again, with no explanation as to what happened, and then it's like, oh, don't worry, you can play the downloadable content. It's great if you make a world that has more content for me to play. If you say, oh, actually, you've got this interesting character and we're going to expand on some of their stories beforehand, that's great. But do not rip whole chunks out of the game to then sell them back to me later in the wrong order, please.
It was so bad because there is literally a point in 15 where Gladiolus disappears for an hour and then comes back. And it's just like, so you're blatantly asked to be sold this back. And then you don't even get to see the Battle of Altissia because they cut it to put in Ignis' DLC. I'm still mad.
Yeah.
Still mad.
I think the thing is it's fine to have this massive world with more stuff. I mean, like, one of the things I really like is Final Fantasy XIV. I play online with Final Fantasy XIV. I think it's great. And one of the things I like about it is when DLC comes out for that game, it has its own story and it's very expansive and it expands on things that they've put into the game beforehand. But it's also reasonably priced and you get a lot for it. Whereas with 15, for example, I remember at one point they were doing... I actually quite liked 15, what I've played of it. But I think the problem I had with it was that I waited until I could get the Royal Edition that had everything. Because I wanted to play everything. I didn't want there to be, here's a little bit of story, and away we go. Here's a little bit of story, and away we go. And here's a cliffhanger, will we get back to it? Here it is. Like, I would rather play, okay, this, then this. Then this character goes away, let's play his journey, he's come back, let's rejoin. Because I don't want to be given stuff out of order. I think one of the worst things as well is, and again, I'm not going to say too much about the ending of the game here, so don't worry, but especially with games that end in sad ways, and I'm not talking about 15 here, I'm talking in general, I do not want to return to those games and then play DLC set before sad things happen, because my emotions are gone. You know, I've played through, I'm sad now, or I feel like there's a catharsis there where I've let go of how I feel, my emotions are kind of drained, and then I don't want to return to a time before that happens because I know everything is ultimately pointless.
But to be fair, I will say the one exception to that was, so we got Life is Strange, we got Life is Strange Before the Storm, and then they included the bonus episode that was called Farewell, which is meant to be Max's last day before she leaves for Seattle. And again, you might want to put a timestamp on this for spoilers, but this is unfortunately necessary. What they don't tell you is that that's the day Chloe's dad dies. And I swear to God, I spent the entire last 10-15 minutes ugly sobbing over my controller. And I was just like, well done. But oh my God, you wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I think they can do really interesting things, but I think it's again a case of if you're doing this because you're passionate about the game rather than financial status, it will come off well and people will appreciate it. If you're cutting bits out of the main story, then you're going to have problems. Because I think that's the thing with Life is Strange as well, is that the DLC isn't stuff that's been cut, it's stuff that's been added, and that makes it a positive. Like, you don't feel like that's missing. You don't feel like that story is missing when you play the original game, and then when you get that, you go, oh, okay, this is an additional thing. It doesn't feel like it's something that's been chopped out of the middle. It feels like a full game in its own right, and here is something else. Anyway, other than that, I think we better wrap up there. We've been talking for quite a while, but anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening today. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you do enjoy this video. Thank you very much, Viki, for being with me. If people want to see your articles and things like that, I understand you're going to be writing a few for me in the future?
Yes, indeed. We're getting a big, long article about why I was upset with Kingdom Hearts 3. I will try and keep it to... I will try and make sure it is not a rant.
So there will be another deep dive. For people out there who are also frustrated about Kingdom Hearts 3, there will be another dive into that. So please bear with, guys. That will be up on nextstepnick.com. I will put out a little notice when that comes out. But don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss anything. Other than that, we're looking to make this a weekly feature. So if you do enjoy this, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Other than that, thank you very much for tuning in today. It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me as well.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great week. Hello guys, if you've made it this far, then I hope you really enjoyed our chat this week. Hopefully we're going to be doing this on a weekly basis, so you will get more of this next Sunday, fingers crossed. It's really nice to catch up with Viki. She's not with me right now, but I just thought I'd go over very quickly why I picked Rainbow Six, because fair enough, if you're still here, I think you deserve to see whether or not I manage this. Spoilers? Probably not. Probably not. I've always really enjoyed it, to be honest. I think it's a game that's really underrated in regard to the series. I think it's something I'd love to see another version of. And now that we're talking about Ubisoft, for example, going into that area of varying their games and going into different variations, potentially we could, and I'd love to see that. I think it's a great game. I think it's got some really good aspects, really good features. I know Siege kind of fills that gap a little bit, but I don't think the terrorist hunts are as good. I mean, this was just... it's oddly terrifying. It's really unnerving. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I recorded the content for this, I thought, oh yeah, I remember this. This is a really good game. I play it from time to time. The controls on PC are odd. They're okay, but they're not great. And the console support workaround, the controller support workaround, sorry, is so overly complicated. You have to register your controller and then do X and then do Y and then look at this and then look at that, and it's just a nightmare. It supports, I think, like 3 different types of controllers specifically, and any sort of third-party controllers, forget about it. So I'm playing this with WASD. It's alright. It's a good game, and it's got some really good content. I love the terrorists' accidental jargon. I love the things they come out with, and I really enjoy the whole idea of unlocking stuff. I think, to be honest, this is an example of what we've lost, especially in modern gaming, because all of these items you've seen me unlocking and putting on my character, they're all free. They're all included. This isn't like a DLC trip. All of these things are literally things you unlock over the course of the game that you can then use and equip your character with. It's just really cool. It's a really, really cool game. And if you haven't picked it up already, I'd recommend giving it a go. The story's okay. It's a bit cliche, but it's fun with a friend. And the terrorist hunts alone will give you quite a long amount of time. You know, a lot of playability. A lot of replayability, I should say. But honestly, really, really good game. Really good game. It's funny. It does things... I don't think it means to be funny, but it is funny. And just in general, I think it's a great feeling game. It's got some really good aspects. I really hope to see another one in the future. But just thought I'd let you know so you could see the end and see how I end up. Yeah, I did well in some of those runs, huh? I mean, I really showcased my skills. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hopefully I'll catch you again next week. Goodbye for now.